Hi there, I'm Tony Glynn and welcome along to the PGG Wrightson Stud Tour. Now this week it's good to be back down on the South Island. We're at Tarras. We're at 9 Mile Whole Merino Stud, catching up with the Lucas family. These guys are getting the best of both worlds, not just breeding traditional merinos. So let's go and see the team. Gordy Lucas here at 9 Mile. How long have you been here, Gordy?
51 years. I came here in 1961 as a boy. This agent said to Dad, going over Phillips Road, he said it'd be a great little stepping stone for the lad. Haven't stepped off the stone yet though.
Still there?
But it's getting a bit slippery, yeah.
So a few Lucases about, Gordy, whereabouts do you originate from?
Well, we all originated from south Otago. There's 5 boys in my father's family. And they all came to Central Otago after the war, really. A couple went to Bendigo. And my father went to Wanaka, farmed there.
So we're not too far away from Tarras, Gordy, but whereabouts exactly are we?
We're in the Lindis Valley, up on the way up to Lindis Pass, yes, on State Highway 8. So about the homestead's 16 k's from Tarras Village, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how big's the place now, Gordy?
It's 2,223 hectares, 2,203 hectares, and during tenure review we negotiated a dock. Have got eight hectares around here on the sunny face heading into Camp Creek, which is just on the corner here.
Yeah.
And of course we negotiated with now it's the old hotels, public property.
Yeah. You lost your pub.
Lost the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good place for a party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Justin Wilson, manager here at 9 Mile. Beautiful place of the country, Justin.
Yep, yeah, it's a great part of New Zealand and Central Otago. We really love it down here.
You wouldn't get better scenery than this.
It's great on a day like today, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what are you running on the place here, Justin?
Well, we're running about 5,200 merino ewes and 80 Angus cows and 30 heifers which have just finished calving. Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 places together?
Yes, we have a fattening block down towards Cromwell called Willowbank, and we send all our weather lambs down there to fatten, plus there's 500 ewes and a few cows there as well.
So whereabouts were you before here, Justin? You're an Otago man?
Yes, born and bred Otago, over at Queensbury actually, between Luggett and Cromwell.
Obviously you would have been around a bit though?
Yep, yeah, sort of when I left home, went up into Canterbury and worked on a crop farm up there for a wee while, and then Mendip Hills, North Canterbury. And just before I was here, I was in the Mackenzie Basin at Grays Hills for about 5 years. And
always been merino ewes?
No. I come from a merino Romney half-bred background really. And initially there was half-breds here, got fairly envious of the wool price difference, disparity between what the merino was getting, and so decided to dump the half-bred and go for merino. So I did that in 1 year, dumped a whole lot, and started with into the merinos by buying annual draft ewes from Melbourne Downs bloodlines, that type of wool, and they did pretty well for us.
Yeah.
And they shifted well, the annual draft ewes. Wasn't too happy with the carcass and where we were going with the shape of the sheep and the tightness, and we were getting more wrinkle, tightness, and while we were pretty happy with the way things were performing, I wasn't really happy with the sheep that I had. Jane came along from Australia about the right time, about 1998 I think. She came back with this notion of SRS wools and a totally different type of way of selecting merinos. Well, we'll never look back really from that day.
So Jane, Riv, on the stud side of things, you'll have to work in fairly closely with Jane there?
She's up here involved in all the stud work, so
yeah,
and helps out at other times, tailing and that sort of thing. So.
So she's just bought a farm too, so you might be a bit hard to get her up here.
Yeah, we're just been a bit worried that she's going to start breeding rams for herself.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Telling us that we don't need that one.
So Jane, no stranger to the high country. You're brought up down there around the lakes at Queenstown?
Yep. Mum, Dad bought Halfway Bay Station down near Kingston, between Kingston and Queenstown.
And now you're also a sheep classer, that's your profession. Some people might not know, what is a sheep classer?
Sheep classer in the merino industry classes the wool and the animal. So we look at the conformation and the constitution along with the wool. And so I guess a wool class is in the shed and I'm in the yards.
Yeah.
And we're making breeding decisions, whereas a classer in the shed is making decisions of lines to put wool in to make more value for the farmer. I more worked my way through the stud industry in Australia and worked my way through till I stud master there. And then when I just wanted to come back to New Zealand and it just so happened that I called into 9 Mile one day and they were looking at sheep and we looked at them and we talked about what I would do and Gordon was just at that transitional stage where he was trying to think of where to go with his sheep. He'd been trying to go finer and he felt he hadn't been looking at the whole picture in the animal and felt they weren't going in the direction he wanted to. So Gordon and I started it in '98 on 200 ewes that we selected out of the flock. I haven't found a pole merino anywhere in Australasia that is, and maybe there's some out there and someone will ring me and tell me I'm wrong, but that is sort of 15, 16 micron ram that has got the carcass that I want. They're not there. So we're sort of starting from the ground up, which makes it heaps of fun. Gordon wanted to be fine. He wanted to be very fine, but he just didn't want to lose his carcass and he didn't want to lose his fertility and he didn't know whether there was another way and we came up with a plan, yeah. We're looking for an animal now for our clients that is bare-legged and bearer-headed, and that's all tied up with fertility, and there's a very strong tie there. Not huge bellies on them, sort of say a 3 out of 5 belly, and but very long stapled wool over the actual carcass. Fleece weight is important, but in the same token we realise that for an animal to be balanced, as soon as you start really pushing fleece weight, you take your fat off and your eye muscle off and your fertility. The animal needs a hell of a lot of protein to be able to do everything, and generally Merino's going into a sort of a low protein area, as known as the high country. So I've been wanting to breed an animal that converts well, but can still have the lambs and have a killing lamb and true to type. And they've always had this, the front of an animal, the skin on a merino, and I've never been fond of skin on merino, and so I keep them very plain and keep their points very plain and just keep the density up on a plain body and we just go from there. So the ewes here, they're cutting in the 5s, around 5, anywhere between 5'3" and 5'5", 5'6", depending on the season, but and they sit probably average just under 17 micron. Sometimes you're better off just saying, look, sacrificing half of a kilo and getting that other 10-20% of lambs, and having a sheep that is really robust. We're trying to create a very fine merino that carries itself like a medium merino, I guess. Yeah. And
you're getting there?
We're getting there, slowly but surely, yeah. We'll never get to where I want to go, but that's just because the goalposts keep shifting.
But you're only young, Jane.
Not that bloody young. But, yeah.
So Murray and Shane MACMILLAN here at Mount Pizer Station. Whereabouts exactly are we, Murray?
Oh, you're up the road from Cromwell, about halfway between Cromwell and Luggett. So, yeah, on the dark side of the mountain.
We used to run half-breeds, sort of composite type ewes. We sold them. We're trying to build our numbers up with the ewes, so with the Merinos.
Yeah. So it hasn't always been straight merino country?
Not here, no. Yeah. We've always buggered around with a few composites and whatnot.
The hill always ran Merinos, but we had composites down these flat paddocks here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And getting a few merino rams from the 9 Mile there?
Yeah, we are. Have been for a while now.
And they've developed a specialist type of wool. I believe it's some of the nicest wool that's being produced in the country. And also making a dual-purpose sheep out of it. We're looking at, seeing we don't have the composites down on the flat. Now we're looking at fattening. Well, we have for the last few years fattened all our hoggets, merino weather hoggets, and that's a big part of our income now is selling them off in the spring. I would say with 9 Mile there's a hell of a lot of thought into what they're doing and where they're going.
Yeah.
And where they're going and what they're doing is what we want to do.
Yeah.
So that's about basically how I feel about it. Shane might have other ideas, but...
No, I think if we carried on the way we were going with the traditional type merino, we probably wouldn't be supporting 2 families on the place now.
Yeah.
So Murray, Jane Rive's got a lot to do with the sheep there at 9 Mile. You don't mind buying a few rams off Hot Jack?
Oh, I hate it.
Oh, I love it. Jane was the one that really pushed the whole thing forward for us. She classes all our sheep and lines the rams up and does all that work. Very talented and very passionate about what she does, and she shows that when she's working here for, doing the job for us, and she's made one hell of a difference to it's very hard for an individual or for a guy or people in our position to colour flock. I found that out after Jane came along, and well, it is.
No, but the 2 of us couldn't do it.
Yeah.
No, because she looks at it without any bias at all, and it works really well. I mean, she's throwing out sheep that I just love them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it's the only way to go.
It
Have
is.
someone independently classing your sheep, and all our ewes are classed prior to the ram going out.
Yeah.
And all our culls are taken out then.
Yeah.
So the terminal rams are put with those cull ewes.
So she's got a bit to do with the selection process of the rams too, like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You stand back and let her choose them.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
she'll advise us.
She advises us.
Yeah. We know what we want. We know the range we want. And Gordon's very, very good to work with. Known Gordon all my life nearly, and very good to work with, and also very passionate about what he does. So it's a win-win all round.
We've been eye muscle scanning since 2004, and it's like anything, when you start focusing on a trait, you start being able to move it, and as the merino hasn't been known as a carcass animal, genetically it was hard to find what we were looking for there too. But because the hogget trade has come so big for the merino, the spring hogget market, carrying your weather hoggets through and shearing them and killing them, that is such big business in the industry that there has been a complete refocus of the merino as just a straight wool animal, and it is now becoming seen as a more of a dual purpose animal.
Yeah.
But back then we were unhappy with the killing weights we were getting. A 16 kilo carcass. Now it is amazing when you focus on, as I said, when you focus on traits, you really can move the animal in a different direction. But it is, the more traits you focus on, the slower your genetic gain. So the big thing is being able to nail down exactly what we are focused on, and try to keep it tight, so that something can happen before I die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with eye muscle scanning and that, what other benefits are you coming across there, Jane?
There's been a lot of work done in Australia through Mark Ferguson. He did a PhD on breeding values, actually, and I should also add we've been using ASB breeding values, which is the Australian sheep breeding values, on the stud since 2004 as well. And this Mark Ferguson has found a genetic tie-in between eye muscle and fertility, as in lambs on the ground, which does make sense when you think about it. By having more of a storage value on the sheep, as in when they can store more meat and fat, they have higher fertility. So you're starting to get into more of crossbreed traits, and they start to pay out like a crossbreed does, and
Pick up that percentage a bit.
Pick up that percentage, and there is interesting tie-ins with eye muscle, and you get an animal that looks different, of course, and there's more technology coming on board all the time. I watch the crossbreed industry a lot because that's where really interesting things are happening with carcass. And the other interesting thing is, when we've done this scanning, is keeping an eye on the fat, the genetic fat of the merino, and it was quite unbelievable when we started how low it was. And how quickly it's moved once you also take that factor in. And with increasing fat, you increase the survivability of the lamb.
Fairly important around here.
Rather important, but you also safeguard the ewe in drier conditions, and they've found that in a drought year a ewe will still lamb as high as she could in a good year with high fat. So that's really interesting. And yeah, and growth is the other one. Merinos have been famous for being a very slow maturing animal, and that's something we've been working along with, moving the 100 to 200 to 300 day growth curve and measuring it. And yeah, there's been some very interesting things there, and there's a tie in there, of course, with more lambs on the ground, faster growing.
So with all the stud work, must be helping also commercially with all your weighing and everything, must help out there?
Yes, definitely helps there. The studs are, with the EBV thing coming through, all the lambs, you know, with growth traits and that measured, it enables us to finish our lambs earlier, get them up to weights, and you know, putting the right ram over the ewes is a big thing. Yeah. When I first got here, we were finishing about 2,000 or 2,500 weather lambs up here, which was quite an exercise in green feed crops and a lot of feeding and that sort of thing to get them through. And we just found that it was becoming a real burden on the land, turning up paddocks, twice as much as what we normally would, and it's just creating. I mean, it was profitable, but it was creating quite a big workload. So
yeah.
When Willowbank came along, and all of a sudden we could send all those weather lambs down there and free up land up here for our own ewe hoggets and pushing the ewe numbers back up a bit.
And just recently shorn now, how'd that go?
Yep, shearing went well this year. Yep, all weights are right up there. Yep, well over 5 k's on the ewes.
And you enjoy that technology you had strapped on your belt there?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, it's just something that's hopefully going to make it easier in the long run. Yeah.
Speed the process up.
And eliminate any errors, human error and that sort of thing.
We've been involved mainly in the technology side of it, introducing quite a bit of true test gear this year, helping with the not only the weighing but also identifying fleeces, etc. So they're certainly keen to embrace the technology for sure. We talk about pre-lamb shearing. They do use bionic capsules there. We also get involved in the vaccine side of things, the dip side. We're hoping to monitor some fecal egg counts at tailing time this year. The company, in conjunction with Novartis, are looking at doing a New Zealand-wide survey on maybe drench resistance occurring in long-acting drenches or injection. So this is just something else that we offer as part of the organisation.
Craig Adams, you're with Merino New Zealand, and you've had quite a tie-up over the years with 9 Mile Merinos.
Yeah, I've been involved with Gordon and Spin and JAYNE, I guess, at 9 Mile for quite a while now. So I've watched the clip and the stud develop and change over the years, and work closely with them. We've marketed the 9 Mile clip both through the auction and into contracts. A couple of years ago, JAYNE, Gordon and Spin and myself and their wool classer at 9 Mile, Ian Shaw, travelled up to China to have a look at the processing up there. So we went up there and had a look at the wool being combed at the Shazhou mill, and then went through to the spinning process across the road. That was a really great trip in terms of helping all of us with our knowledge of how wool processes and what needs to be done back in the wool shed. So as the studs developed and as the clips developed, they're clipping a lot of wool, the big heavy clipping sheep, quite long. So it helped with the classing process in terms of educating us and Ian in the wool shed as to what's the best way to prepare the clip to get the best out of it in all markets, be it through to contracts or even through into the auction, which is there's still a significant amount of the clip going to auction, and that can vary from year to year. Commodity markets in general are really struggling, be it the wool market, the meat market. You know, last year we came from the highest prices that I can remember in my career, or for a very long time, and back to this year it's come back down quite significantly, both on wool and meat and things like that. So a lot of the merino fine wool growers are already really focused on a dual purpose type of an animal, so you know, really getting the most out of lamb production and wool. So we've got quite a lot of work going on the production side, research and development work happening there at the moment with funding from the government through the Primary Growth Partnership Fund. And you know, it's a really big part of what we're doing at the moment, and looking at all sorts of things from forage trials and feeding regimes through to production, through to animal health like foot rot and things like that as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on. It's a really busy time, but it's a big focus of ours to make our clients as profitable as possible through all areas of their fine wool sheep.
So what's the selling process here, Jane, with the rams?
Clients want, you know, all the information, and we've got all the breeding values there and the actual figures, and they don't spend a lot of time on them. They want to go straight and look at the wool, and that ends up being usually the #1 selling point. So
yeah, you
have to try to balance them out with where the animal's going. I'm trying to make sure that the high country gets high fat and high eye muscle.
So
rams.
You're fairly careful about where they're going.
I like to, because I want the sheep to perform for people, and I want our industry to stay intact and keep growing. And I know that we have to keep the merino growing as a breed. I was thinking, when you were talking about before, there's old paradigms that we always have in the industry, and as I've grown up through the traditional industry initially in Australia, and it's become out a lot now. But I mean, that old saying, true to type, always impresses me as a way of holding back a breed. If it doesn't look a certain way, then it's no good.
Yeah.
So in other words, that just keeps you folding in the edges and keeps the animal looking a certain way. And to me, that is hugely detrimental for the breed. And so we've tried to shift all of those old paradigms. The new client that's coming in is a half-breed client, who's using our rams because they want to breed a half-bred that is fine enough to get the smart wool and icebreaker trade, but also has the carcass traits they want. So instead of them traditionally going to a 19-20 micron pole, which means that it's harder for them to shift the micron down on those, with those higher micron rams, whereas a 15-16 micron ram can really shift them down, and as long as the carcass trait's there as well.
So you're banging them over a Romney?
It hasn't been. They've been banging them over a Romney, yeah. Seems sacrilegious, I know.
So how long has that been taking place?
Well, just these people, new clients from Canterbury, have been, it's only a couple of years. We've also had people interested in them, in our merinos, for putting over Romney hoggets.
Oh, yeah.
For ease of lambing, and then still having a killable hogget in the spring, early spring, but fine wool for the icebreaker trade. So it means that a Romney client can lamb his Romney's hoggets down easily without any difficulty with the merino, and yet still have an animal that they can take more time over growing out, because it's got a fine enough wool that's worthwhile sharing.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about the future. I mean, there's so many other pressures coming on the rural landscape, in the shape of dairy cows and dairy grazers, and the crossbred sheep producing. I think if we don't go down this path of breeding a dual-purpose merino, yeah, I worry about the future of them.
Yeah.
But there'll always be a place for them. But it's a small industry. We need to give it a good kick along and get a few more people doing it. Yeah. So I think there'll always be a future for it.
Yeah. For more information on the PGG Wrightson Stud Tour, visit ruraltv.co.nz and come and join us on Facebook.